The great chamber floated in the darkness of space, spinning slowly around a dying star. Inside, representatives from 47 different species gathered in a circle. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few were made of something that looked like living crystal. They all came together for one purpose: to decide the fate of younger species who wanted to join their powerful alliance. Today, they would judge humanity. Ambassador Chen stood in the center of the circular chamber. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. Around her, the council members sat on platforms that floated high above, looking down at her like gods judging a mortal. The chamber was designed to make visitors feel small and unimportant. It was working. "We have reviewed your application," said Councillor Vexthor. He was a massive creature covered in black scales with 4 arms and teeth that looked like they could bite through steel. His species, the Krath, were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors. "Your species is amusing." Laughter echoed through the chamber. It came from dozens of different mouths, creating a sound that made Chen's skin crawl. "We have been traveling between stars for 3,000 years, continued Vexthor. "Your species achieved this feat merely 80 years ago. You are infants playing with toys you barely understand." Chen kept her face calm, but her hands were clenched behind her back. She had prepared for this. Earth's military intelligence had warned her that the Council did not respect newcomers. Another counselor spoke up. This one looked like a floating jellyfish made of blue light. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. "Your physical forms are weak. You have no natural armor, no claws, no venom. You cannot breathe methane or survive in vacuum. You require specific temperatures, specific air, specific everything. How did such a fragile species even survive on its own planet?" More laughter. Chen noticed that not all council members were laughing. A few watched in silence, their expressions unreadable, but the majority seemed to find humanity hilarious. "We survived the same way we've always survived," Chen said quietly, "by refusing to give up." Vexthor leaned forward, his massive form casting a shadow over her. "Refusing to give up? How primitive. The strong take what they want. The weak accept their place. This is the way of the universe." "Perhaps," Chen replied, "but humanity has a different philosophy." "Your philosophy is irrelevant," Vexthor said, waving one clawed hand dismissively. "The Council has made its decision. Humanity is granted probationary status. You may not expand beyond your current 12 colony worlds. You may not engage in military exercises within Council space. You may not trade restricted technologies. You will obey these rules for the next 500 years. After that, we may reconsider your application." 500 years. Chen felt her heart sink. That was 20 human generations. The Council was essentially telling humanity to sit down and be quiet for longer than human civilization had existed. "There is one more thing," Vexthor said, and his smile showed far too many teeth. "Your species has established colonies in 3 systems that the Council has deemed strategically important. These systems are now designated as administrative zones under Council control. You have 30 days to evacuate your citizens." The chamber went silent. Even the species that had been laughing stopped. Chen felt cold. Those colonies housed 2 million human beings. They were established legally in unclaimed space, following all recognized protocols. "The protocols you refer to apply only to Council members," Vexthor said. "You are not members. You are probationary. There is a difference." "You're taking our homes," Chen said, her voice shaking now with barely controlled anger. "You're displacing 2 million people because you can." "We are teaching you your place in the galactic order," Vexthor replied. "Consider it an educational experience. Your species must learn that the universe does not bend to your will. You bend to ours." Chen looked around the chamber. Some council members looked uncomfortable. Others looked bored, but none of them spoke up to defend humanity. They had all agreed to this before she even arrived. This meeting was just a formality, a show of power. "You're making a mistake," Chen said softly. "Threatening the Council is unwise. Human," Vexthor growled. "I'm not threatening anyone," Chen replied. "I'm warning you. You don't understand humans. You think we're weak because we're slow. You think we're irrelevant because we're new. But there's something you should know about my species." She looked directly at Vexthor, meeting his alien eyes without flinching. "Humans don't give up. Ever. We are the species that walked across continents to find new homes. We sailed across oceans in wooden boats not knowing if we would ever see land again. We went to our moon with computers less powerful than the devices in our pockets, just because it was there. When we want something, when we believe in something, we keep going. We don't stop. We don't surrender. We don't forget. Vexthor laughed. How touching. The infant species has passion. But passion without power is just noise, human. You have 30 days. Evacuate your colonies or we will do it for you. Chen stood still for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. Very well. But remember this day, counselor. Remember that you were warned. She turned and walked toward the exit. Behind her, she could hear the council members already discussing other business, dismissing humanity as if they were nothing more than a minor inconvenience. The door sealed behind her with a hiss. Chen stood in the empty corridor, her hands trembling. She activated her communication device. This is Ambassador Chen. The council has rejected our application and seized our colonies. Inform command. Tell them, she paused, choosing her words carefully. Tell them that we tried diplomacy. Tell them the council has made their choice. On the other end of the transmission, there was a long silence. Then a voice responded. Understood, Ambassador. We'll begin preparations. Chen closed her eyes. The council had no idea what they had just started. They saw humans as weak, as forgettable, as beneath their notice. They would learn differently. Humans were very good at teaching lessons. And they had all the time in the world. The evacuation took 28 days. Every human being from the 3 seized colonies was loaded onto transport ships and relocated. The council watched with satisfaction as humanity obeyed their orders. Some council members had expected resistance, perhaps even a small military conflict, but the humans simply left, quiet and compliant. Vexthor visited one of the newly claimed worlds personally. He walked through the empty human settlements, examining what they had left behind. The buildings were simple but functional. The farms were well organized. Everything was clean and orderly. It was clear that humans had built these colonies to last. They even took their dead with them, his aide reported, checking the cemetery on a hillside. Every grave was excavated. They didn't leave anyone behind. Vexthor found that odd but dismissed it as human sentimentality. Primitive species often had strange attachments to corpses. Seal the planet, he ordered. Post a garrison and move on. The humans have learned their lesson. But the humans had not learned the lesson the council intended. In the weeks following the evacuation, humanity went silent. Their ambassadors stopped attending council functions. Their trade ships stopped visiting council ports. Their communication channels went dark. It was as if humanity had simply accepted their punishment and retreated to their small corner of the galaxy. The council forgot about them almost immediately. There were always new problems to solve, new disputes between member species, new territories to manage. Humanity was just one more irrelevant species that had been put in its place. 1 year passed, then 2, then 5. Counselor Vexthor barely thought about humans anymore. His species was engaged in a profitable trade war with the Zenthian Empire, and that consumed most of his attention. His personal merchant fleet, consisting of 40 massive cargo vessels, ran routes across the galaxy, generating enormous wealth. In the 10th year after the seizure, something strange happened. One of Vexthor's cargo ships disappeared. This was not unusual. Space was dangerous. Ships were lost to accidents, pirates, or simply bad navigation. The ship was insured. Vexthor filed the paperwork and moved on. But then another ship disappeared. And another. Over the next 3 years, 7 of his cargo vessels vanished without a trace. No distress signals. No wreckage. No survivors. They simply failed to arrive at their destinations. Vexthor hired investigators. They found nothing. It was baffling. Then, in the 14th year, something impossible happened. All 7 missing ships appeared simultaneously at a coordinates broadcast across all council channels. They were intact, floating in formation in deep space. Boarding parties discovered that the crews were alive and unharmed. They had been kept in comfortable captivity for years. When investigators questioned the crews, they all told the same story. Humans had taken them. They knew everything, one captain reported, still shaken. They knew our routes, our schedules, our cargo manifests. They knew which ships had minimal security. They boarded us without firing a shot, locked us in our own quarters, and flew our ships away. How long did they hold you? The investigator asked. I was taken 3 years ago, the captain said. But they told me something before they released us. They said they had been watching my ship for 7 years before they took it. 7 years. They studied our patterns, learned our habits, waited for the perfect moment. The investigator felt a chill run down his spine. Why would they wait so long? Because they wanted to be certain, the captain replied. The humans who held us, they weren't angry. They weren't violent. They were just patient. They said they were teaching the council a lesson about taking things that don't belong to you. Word spread quickly through council space. The humans had not forgotten. More importantly, they had spent 15 years preparing. While the council had dismissed them as irrelevant, humanity had been watching, learning, and positioning assets across the galaxy. Vexthor was furious. He demanded that humanity be punished for piracy, but when council investigators examined the evidence, they discovered something disturbing. Technically, the humans had broken no laws. They had captured the ships outside council space. They had harmed no one. They had even maintained the ships in perfect condition and returned them with their crews. The only thing they had taken was time. Ambassador Chen appeared before the council for the first time in 15 years. She was older now, her hair completely white, but her eyes were sharp. You took our homes, she said simply. We took your time. Consider it interest on a debt. This is an act of war, Vexthor snarled. No, Chen replied calmly. War is what happens when we're angry. This is what happens when we're patient. We're simply showing you what humanity does best. And what is that? Demanded another counselor. We hunt, Chen said. Not like your species, Counselor Vexthor. You craft or ambush predators. You strike fast and hard, then move on to new prey. But humans evolve differently. We are persistence predators. We don't need to be faster than our prey. We don't need to be stronger. We just need to keep going. We chase, we track. We follow for hours, for days, for years. We follow until our prey collapses from exhaustion. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every council member. You thought 15 years was a long time. You thought we had given up. But for humans, 15 years is nothing. We think in generations, not seasons. And we never, ever forget. The chamber was silent. Return our colonies, Chen said quietly. Admit that you took them unjustly. Do this and we can move forward peacefully. Vexthor slammed his fist on his platform. The council does not negotiate with probationary species. You will be punished for this piracy. The full might of the council military will be brought against your pathetic worlds. Chen smiled, but it was not a happy expression. Then I suppose we'll see how long the council can run before it collapses from exhaustion. She left the chamber. Behind her, the council began emergency military planning. They would teach humanity a real lesson. They would show these arrogant primitives the price of defying the galactic order. But in the back of the chamber, a few older counselors looked worried. They had studied human history. They knew about the ancient hunters who had chased animals across entire continents. They knew about human wars that had lasted for generations. They knew about the human concept of a grudge. One elderly counselor, a member of a species that had been in the council for 10,000 years, spoke quietly to his aide. We should return the colonies. But that would show weakness, the aide protested. The old counselor watched the door through which Chen had exited. No. Refusing to return them will show stupidity. The humans have made their nature clear. They are not like us. They measure victory differently. They think differently. They are willing to spend decades, perhaps centuries, to prove a point. Surely we can defeat them militarily, the aide said. Perhaps, the counselor replied. But can we defeat them before our economy collapses? Before our species loses patience? Before the cost becomes unbearable? Humans don't need to win battles. They just need to make winning too expensive for us. The aide looked confused. The old counselor sighed. Humans have a saying, we can lose every battle and still win the war. We are about to learn what that means. In the depths of space, on hidden human vessels, military commanders received new orders. The hunt had truly begun. 20 years after the Council seized the human colonies, the galaxy was changing in ways the Council did not understand. Trade routes that had been profitable for centuries were now losing money. Ships that had always run on time were experiencing delays. Mining operations reported equipment failures at unprecedented rates. Communication networks experienced strange glitches. None of it was dramatic. None of it was obviously connected. But together, these small problems were bleeding the Council economy. Council analysts tried to identify the cause. They found nothing concrete, just 1,000 small problems that seemed like bad luck. But a few people noticed patterns. The delays always happened to ships carrying military supplies, one analyst reported. Civilian vessels are fine, but anything heading to military installations gets delayed by asteroids, sensor malfunctions, or navigation errors. The mining equipment failures only affect facilities near strategic locations, another noted. Random colonies are fine, but mines near military bases or research stations can't keep their equipment running. The communication glitches always seem to happen when Council military fleets are trying to coordinate movements. A third analyst observed. Personal communications work fine. Entertainment broadcasts are perfect, but tactical military channels experience interference. Vexthor dismissed these concerns. Space is vast and complicated. Problems happen. Deploy more ships to guard the trade routes. Send technicians to fix the equipment. Build redundant communication networks. The Council did all these things. It was enormously expensive, and the problems continued. In the 23rd year, the Council military decided to make an example. The Kravaks, a species known as the greatest hunters in the galaxy, volunteered their elite hunter-killer fleet. These were the best of the best. Warriors who had trained their entire lives to track and destroy enemies. Their target was Commander Sarah Mitchell, a human who had been identified as responsible for coordinating many of the disruptions. Intelligence had located her ship in an outer sector. The hunter-killer fleet, consisting of 20 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy, set out to capture or kill her. The chase began. Mitchell's ship fled, and the Kravaks pursued. They were confident. Their ships were faster. Their weapons were superior. Mitchell's vessel was a modified cargo hauler, nothing special. But Mitchell did not try to fight. She simply ran. She led them on a winding path through asteroid fields, past dead stars, around gravitational anomalies. The Kravaks followed, always just behind, always almost catching her. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. The Kravaks commander grew frustrated. She is clever, but she will make a mistake. We will not give up. But Mitchell never made a mistake. She kept just out of reach, leading them deeper and deeper into uncharted space. The Kravaks fleet began to experience supply problems. They had left in pursuit so quickly that they had not fully stocked for an extended mission. We need to resupply, the second officer reported. We are running low on fuel and food. We are too far from any friendly port, the commander replied, checking their navigation. It would take us months to return. Perhaps we should break off the pursuit, the second officer suggested carefully. No, the commander snarled. The Kravaks do not give up on a hunt. We will catch this human and make an example of her. The chase continued, but the problems grew worse. 2 ships had to shut down non-essential systems to conserve power. The fleet's speed decreased. They began to fall further behind Mitchell. Then the food ran out. We must turn back, the second officer insisted. Our crew is weakening. We cannot continue, the commander finally agreed. They had been chasing Mitchell for 7 months. It was time to return home. But when they tried to plot a course back to Council space, they made a terrible discovery. Mitchell had led them in a complex pattern that had brought them far from any known star routes. They were lost in the empty space between spiral arms, with insufficient fuel to reach civilization. Their communication range was limited. No one knew where they were. The last transmission from the hunter-killer fleet was a simple distress call. It went unheard. 30 years later, a salvage team found the wreckage of the Kravak ships drifting in deep space. The crews had been dead for decades. Preserved by the cold void, they were a monument to a failed hunt. Investigators found a data log from the commander. The final entry was haunting. We understand now. The human was never running away. She was leading us. She knew exactly where she was going. She planned this entire chase from the beginning. We thought we were the hunters, but humans hunt differently. They don't chase until they catch you. They chase until you can't run anymore. We are dying in the dark because we did not understand this simple truth. The humans are better hunters than we are. News of the lost fleet spread through Council space. The message was clear. Humans did not fight battles they could not win. Instead, they made their enemies fight battles that could not be won. And they were everywhere. Council security discovered human operatives embedded in civilian populations across 100 worlds. They were not spies in the traditional sense. They were ordinary people living ordinary lives who occasionally did small things. A dock worker who misrouted a shipment, a technician who introduced a small error into software, a trader who spread rumors that changed market prices. None of it was illegal. None of it was provable. But together, these thousands of tiny actions were destroying the council economy. Vexthor demanded action. Find every human in council space and deport them. That would violate trade agreements with 50 species, Anade explained. Many of them employ humans. If we start mass deportations, we will trigger a political crisis. Then pass laws to restrict their activities, Vexthor insisted. We have tried, but humans are very good at finding loopholes. They follow the letter of the law while completely undermining its spirit. Vexthor felt his species' famous temper rising. Then we will take direct military action. We will blockade human worlds. We will show them the price of defiance. The council fleet was dispatched to human space. 100 ships, enough to blockade Earth itself. It was a massive show of force. The fleet arrived in human space and found nothing. Earth's orbital defenses were minimal. The planet itself seemed almost undefended. It was a trap, obviously. The fleet commander held position, waiting for the human counterattack. It never came. Instead, something else happened. All across council space, economic activity involving human goods and services simply stopped. Thousands of contracts were terminated. Millions of workers went on strike. Supply chains collapsed. The council had not realized how deeply integrated humanity had become in their economy over the past 40 years. While everyone had been focused on the military threat, humans had quietly made themselves essential to countless businesses and industries. Ambassador Chen, now very elderly and speaking through a hologram, addressed the council. You have blockaded our home. Fine, we will stop working for yours. Let us see who needs whom more. Within a month, 3 council species were experiencing serious economic difficulties. Within 3 months, 7 were on the verge of collapse. The fleet blockading Earth was recalled to deal with civil unrest in their own territories. Vexthor finally understood. The humans were not trying to win a war. They were demonstrating that there could be no peace until the colonies were returned. They could maintain this pressure for generations if necessary. He called an emergency council session. We must negotiate, but the old guard refused. We cannot show weakness. If we give in to human demands, every probationary species will think they can defy us. Then what do you suggest? Vexthor demanded. We are bleeding resources. Our economy is failing. Our military is stretched thin. The humans have not even fought us directly, and we are losing. No one had a good answer. In the silence, everyone realized the same thing. The council had made a terrible mistake 50 years ago, and humanity was going to make them pay for it, one patient day at a time for as long as it took. 50 years after the council had seized the human colonies, the galaxy was a very different place. The council still existed, but it was fracturing. 12 species had secretly negotiated separate peace treaties with humanity. They had quietly returned trading rights, lifted restrictions, and in some cases even apologized for their part in the original decision. These species were prospering. Their economies were stable. Their ships traveled safely. The species that remained loyal to the council's hardline were suffering. Their trade was disrupted. Their supplies were unreliable. Their military resources were constantly stretched thin, defending against threats that never quite materialized. Vexthor's homeworld, once the pride of the Krath Empire, was now under permanent blockade. Not by human warships. There were no battles, no dramatic space conflicts. Instead, humanity simply controlled every trade route in or out of the system. Any ship trying to reach Krath space found itself delayed by navigation errors. Pirates seemed to know exactly when and where valuable cargo would be traveling. Asteroids appeared in shipping lanes with suspicious frequency. Insurance rates for trips to Krath space had increased by 400%. Vexthor stood on the observation deck of his family estate, looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there, human ships were watching, waiting, ensuring that his people remained isolated. It had been 3 years since a supply ship had successfully reached the planet. His people were not starving. The Krath were resourceful. They could survive, but they could not thrive. Their economy had collapsed. Their military was grounded for lack of fuel. Their proud warrior culture was reduced to rationing and survival, And the humans had never fired a single shot at Krath space. They are killing us with patience, Vexthor muttered to himself. They are destroying us by doing nothing. His aide approached nervously. Counselor, the young leaders are calling for your resignation. They say it is time to negotiate with the humans. I know, Vexthor said quietly. He was old now. His scales faded, his movements slow. He had spent 50 years fighting humanity, and he had nothing to show for it but failure. Perhaps they are right. But in the council chambers, the old guard still held power. They refused to admit defeat. They insisted that if the council just held firm for a little longer, humanity would give up. They did not understand that humans never gave up. In the 65th year, humanity revealed something that made the council's blood run cold. A massive fleet appeared at the edge of council space. Not warships. These were civilian vessels, cargo haulers, and transports. Thousands of them arranged in perfect formation. Each ship was a derelict, a council vessel that had been captured, disabled, or abandoned over the past 6 decades. Humans had collected them all. Every single ship that had disappeared, every vessel that had been lost, every wreck that had drifted into deep space. They were all here, arranged in a vast display that stretched across millions of kilometers. Each ship had been carefully tagged with information. The date it was lost, how long humans had pursued it, where it was found. The humans had turned their collection into a monument, a memorial to persistence. The longest pursuit was recorded on a Zenthian merchant vessel, 47 years, 3 months, and 18 days. Humans had tracked this single ship across the galaxy for nearly half a century, before finally capturing it in neutral space. Ambassador Chen's son, now representing Earth, broadcast a message to the entire galaxy. We want you to understand something. This is not a threat. This is a demonstration. Every ship you see here represents time. Time we spent watching, time we spent waiting, time we spent following. We are not showing you our military might. We are showing you our patience. He gestured to the vast fleet of derelict ships. We will never stop. We will never forget. We will continue this for 100 years if necessary. For 1,000 years. For 10,000. We will outlast you. Not because we are stronger, not because we are smarter, but because we are willing to keep going long after you have given up. The message ended with a simple statement. Return our colonies. End this, or watch your civilization slowly collapse over the course of centuries while we simply wait for you to understand what we have been trying to teach you. The effect was immediate. Public opinion across council space turned against the old guard. Species that had been neutral now openly criticized the continued occupation of human colonies. Economists published studies showing that the cost of containing humanity far exceeded any value the 3 colonies provided. We are spending 60% of our military budget defending 3 planets, one report stated bluntly. We have lost trillions in trade. Dozens of council species are economically unstable. And for what? Pride, principle? The numbers do not support this policy. Young council members, those who had not been present at the original decision, began calling for change. They had grown up in a galaxy where humanity was a constant pressure, a never-ending problem that consumed resources and provided no benefit. Why are we doing this? They asked. What are we gaining? The old guard had no good answer. They fell back on tradition, on the importance of maintaining council authority, on the danger of appearing weak. But their arguments were hollow. The council did not appear strong. They appeared stubborn. They appeared foolish. They appeared to be fighting a battle they could not win against an enemy they did not understand. In the 73rd year, Vexthor finally spoke against his own policy. He was the last of the original council members still alive. He had watched his contemporaries die or retire one by one, while the human problem persisted. He was ancient by Krath standards, his body failing, his mind still sharp enough to understand the terrible truth. He called for an emergency session and addressed the council. I made a mistake, he said, his voice weak but clear. 73 years ago, I looked at humanity and saw weakness. I saw a species without claws, without armor, without any apparent physical advantage. I dismissed them as primitives who needed to be taught their place. The council chamber was silent. No one had ever heard Vexthor admit error. But I did not understand what I was looking at. Humans are persistence predators. On their homeworld, They evolved to hunt by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They would follow animals for days, sometimes weeks, never giving up. This strategy was so effective that they became the dominant species on their planet. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from dozens of species. We brought that into space. We made ourselves the prey. And for 73 years they have been chasing us. They have not caught us with superior weapons. They have not defeated us in glorious battle. They have simply kept going, day after day, year after year, decade after decade, never stopping, never forgetting, never forgiving. He closed his eyes, his ancient body trembling with exhaustion. I am tired. Our economy is tired. Our people are tired, but the humans are not tired. They will never be tired. This is what they are. This is what they do, and we cannot outlast them. He opened his eyes and looked directly at the current council leadership. Return the colonies. Admit our error. End this before the next generation inherits a galaxy ruined by our pride. The wisdom we should have had 73 years ago was simple. Never make an enemy of a species that invented the word relentless. Vexthor collapsed. Medics rushed to help him, but he waved them away. He had said what needed to be said. His part in this story was over. The council voted that night. For the first time in 73 years, they voted to negotiate seriously with humanity. The hunt was nearly over. But the lesson had been learned in blood, treasure, and time. 75 years after the council seized 3 human colonies, the great chamber looked exactly as it had on that fateful day. The floating platform still circled the center. The dying star still glowed outside the windows. But everything else had changed. The council members who sat on those platforms were different people from different generations. Most of the species representatives were young, barely old enough to remember when the conflict started. They had inherited a galaxy shaped by a war that was never really a war. A conflict that had consumed 3 generations without a single major battle. The center of the chamber stood Ambassador Jennifer Chen. She was the granddaughter of the woman who had first warned the council. She looked remarkably like her grandmother, with the same determined eyes and quiet confidence. But this time she was not asking for anything. This time, the council was offering. The Galactic Council officially recognizes that the seizure of human colonies in the year of our calendar was an unlawful act, read the council speaker, a young member of a species that had not even been on the council when the conflict began. We return these colonies to human control, along with full reparations for economic damages, payment for all resources extracted during the occupation, and compensation for the suffering of displaced citizens. Jennifer listened without expression. Furthermore, the speaker continued, humanity is granted full council membership with permanent seats and veto power in all major decisions. Trade restrictions are lifted. Military restrictions are removed. All probationary status is revoked. Humanity is recognized as a full and equal member of galactic civilization. The terms were generous, unprecedented. The council was not just giving back what they had taken. They were giving humanity more power than most species who had been members for thousands of years. Jennifer finally spoke. The colonies have been prepared for our return? Yes, the speaker confirmed. All occupation forces have been withdrawn. All council facilities have been dismantled. The planets are exactly as your people left them 75 years ago. And the people, the 2 million humans you displaced? We have been maintaining them in stasis, a council representative explained. Your medical technology at the time was advanced enough to preserve them safely. Not a single person was lost. They are ready to be awakened and returned to their homes. Jennifer felt emotions she had been trained to suppress. Her grandmother had died believing those people might never come home. Her father had spent his entire life working toward this moment. And now it was here. On behalf of humanity, she said carefully, we accept these terms. Relief was visible across the council chamber. This nightmare was finally over. They could rebuild. They could move forward. But Jennifer was not finished. However, I want to make sure that everyone understands what happened here, for the record. For history, so that this never happens again. She looked around the chamber, her voice clear and strong. 75 years ago, this council looked at humanity and saw weakness. You saw that we were slow, so you assumed we were easy to defeat. You saw that we were physically fragile, so you assumed we were not dangerous. You saw that we were new to space travel, so you assumed we were not worthy of respect. No one interrupted her. You thought you could take our homes and teach us our place. You thought we would accept it. You thought we would move on. But you did not understand the most important thing about humanity. She paused, letting the words sink in. We are slow because we are patient. We are fragile because we learned to build tools instead of growing claws. We are new to space because we spent millions of years perfecting the art of persistence on our homeworld. You did not see weakness. You saw the traits that made us the most dangerous species on Earth. And you brought those traits into the galaxy. Jennifer walked slowly around the chamber, addressing each section of representatives. You are predators who evolved to strike fast and move on. You hunt in bursts of speed and strength. But humans evolved differently. We are the species that chased animals across continents until they collapsed from exhaustion. We are the species that built civilizations in the harshest environments on our planet because we refused to give up. We are the species that went to space on primitive rockets because we wanted to, and nothing could stop us. She returned to the center of the chamber. For 75 years you ran from us. Not in battle, not in defeat. You ran by watching your economy slowly fail. You ran by seeing your military stretch thin. You ran by experiencing 1,000 small problems that never quite stopped. We did not chase you with weapons. We chased you with patience. We followed you with persistence. And eventually, you collapsed from exhaustion. The chamber was absolutely silent. This is what humans do. This is what we have always done. This is what we will always do. We do not need to be the strongest species in the galaxy. We just need to be the one that never gives up. A council member, one who had been present at the original seizure, spoke up. Do you intend to punish us further? To make us suffer as you have suffered? Jennifer shook her head. No, revenge is not the goal. Understanding is the goal. We did not do this to hurt you. We did this to teach you, to show you that every species, no matter how small or new or apparently weak, deserves respect. To prove that taking things that do not belong to you has consequences. She smiled, and it was a genuine smile. We got our colonies back. We got our people back. We earned your respect. The lesson is complete. Now we can be partners instead of enemies. The council speaker stepped forward. There is one more thing. We are establishing a new galactic law, to be remembered for all time. We are calling it the human precedent. A holographic display appeared showing the text of the new law. It states that no council member may seize territory from any species without universal agreement. It states that probationary status may not be used to restrict basic rights. It states that all species, regardless of age or physical capability, must be judged by their achievements and character, not their appearance. The speaker looked at Jennifer. It also states that before taking action against any species, the council must first understand that species' nature and history. We must learn from the mistake we made with humanity. We assumed, we judged, we acted without wisdom, and it cost us 75 years and uncountable resources. Vex Thor, ancient and frail, was brought into the chamber in a support chair. He had insisted on being present for this moment. His voice was barely a whisper, but it carried through the amplification system. I was there when we took your homes. I laughed at your ambassador's warning. I called you weak. I called you primitive. I was wrong about everything. He looked at Jennifer with eyes that had seen too much. Your grandmother told me that humans never give up. She was right. Your father showed us that humans think in generations, not days. He was right. And now you stand here victorious, having defeated us without war. You were right. He closed his eyes, exhausted from even this small speech. The wisdom I should have had 75 years ago was simple. Never make an enemy of a species that values patience over power. Never fight a people who measure success in centuries instead of seasons. Never challenge those who invented the word relentless. Vex Thor was taken from the chamber. He would die 3 days later, the last surviving council member from the original decision. Jennifer watched him go. She felt no hatred, only sadness that so many lives had been affected by one moment of arrogance. The formal ceremony concluded. Treaties were signed. Representatives returned to their homeworlds. The galaxy began to adjust to a new reality where humanity was a respected power. 3 months later, Jennifer stood on the surface of New Terra, one of the 3 returned colonies. Around her, the awakening process was complete. 2 million humans, who had been placed in stasis 75 years ago, were waking up to find that the whole galaxy had fought for their right to come home. An elderly woman approached Jennifer. She had been 35 when she went into stasis. She was still 35 now, while the galaxy had aged 75 years. "I don't understand," the woman said, confused. "We were told to evacuate. We had no choice. How are we back?" Jennifer smiled. "Because humanity never forgot you, never stopped fighting for you, never gave up on bringing you home." The woman looked around at the colony that had been preserved exactly as it was. Her house still stood on the hill. The fields were still planted. Even the small park her children had played in was untouched. 75 years, she whispered. "They fought for 75 years just to bring us back?" "Yes," Jennifer said simply. "Because that is what humans do. We do not leave our people behind. We do not forget our homes. We do not give up, ever." Across all 3 colonies, similar scenes played out. 2 million people waking to discover that they had been worth 75 years of patience, planning, and persistence. Monuments were erected on each colony, simple stone markers with a single inscription: "We came home. We always will." Below that, a second line was added, meant for the galaxy to remember: "Never mistake patience for weakness. Never confuse persistence with aggression. Never forget that the quiet ones are often the most dangerous." Jennifer stood before one of these monuments, thinking about her grandmother who had started this journey, her father who had continued it, and herself who had finished it. The hunt was over. The lesson was learned, and humanity had proven what they had always known. They were not the fastest species. They were not the strongest species. They were not the oldest or most advanced species. But they were the species that never ever gave up, and in the end that was all that mattered.